When it comes to innovation or new, refreshing, and groundbreaking titles, Ubisoft doesn't usually come to mind. Yet, I do play a lot of their games. You can say whatever you want about them, true as it may be, but you do have to admit, when they really try, they are more than capable of releasing a few great games. That much, at least, they have proven. The game I'm talking about in this case is Far Cry 3, and it's just one of those rare breakthrough titles. Now, I've played a lot of the Far Cry series over the years, and I've even dabbled with 2 for a bit. I know, it's real special of me. However, the one that hits me just right has to be the third entry, without a doubt. There's plenty of reasons to love Far Cry 3. I myself love just about everything about it. The gameplay, well more specifically the combat, is polished and exciting with just the right amount of flash and style to make you feel like a true badass jungle warrior. The graphics go without saying. They're absolutely gorgeous, especially for a game being almost a decade old now. I mean, this game is absurdly beautiful. The water, sky, hell, the atmosphere of it all. The little details don't go unnoticed either. Forest fires, vegetation, and the abundance of it. The regular patrols, seeing things like pirates escorting hostages at random, and the wildlife interactions you can come across. They'll go after prey, sleep, sometimes even take out whole outposts for you, all while being completely unscripted. It really, truly adds to the immersion that this is a believable, living, open world island sandbox. However, there's one crucial detail about this game that I've left out up until now. The one major thing among all the other stuff that makes this game for me, more than any explosions, breathtaking scenery, stabbings, or tiger maulings, is the story. In this video, I want to discuss in deep detail the complexity of this game's fantastic plot and why I love it so much. Also, I'll be explaining how it totally blew me away in a unique yet utterly mind-boggling way. Here is my explanation as to why Far Cry 3 is deeper than I thought. In this video, I'll be discussing a lot of details and showing a lot of examples that contain spoilers. So if you haven't by now, I strongly recommend you play this masterpiece before watching. So, on with the video. I'm going to preface this with a little tangential description. This will all make sense and come into play later, so don't worry. To start, I want to ask a question. What is art? Now, I don't mean literally. What I mean is what really makes art, well, art. I believe I may have an answer of my own. Now, of course, art is a wonderful topic that's made even better with its subjective nature, so my definition may not line up with yours and vice versa. People help to make art in any form more beautiful than it already can be when they add their own interpretations, thoughts, feelings, and emotions upon them. So if you think differently than what I say in this video, that's perfectly fine. We don't have to see eye to eye on exactly everything to come to a concise conclusion. If anything, I'm appreciative that there are more people out there giving their own meaning to art and giving their appreciation in the same way I do. And speaking of meaning, that ties into the answer I have for my question. Art, as I would define it, is any meaningful, thought-provoking piece meant to elicit an emotional response. In my eyes, I would say the only bad art is one that doesn't provoke any thought or emotion at all. Because at the end of the day, what really is the point of art after all? Its purpose is to say something, have meaning, and most importantly, make you feel something. What good is any form of art if it makes you feel nothing? If it says nothing, does nothing, goes nowhere, and makes you feel nothing, it's probably meaningless. Now, that's not always a bad thing necessarily. Not everything has to mean or say something deep or complex for us to enjoy it. And opinions differ, so keep loving what you love. What matters is you enjoy it. Throughout my life, I've grown quite a huge amount of love and intrigue of stories of all genres and platforms. I myself, and many others I'm sure, personally believe that out of books, movies, paintings, video games, etc., it's video games that have the most artistic potential of them all. Games are the only way to truly and fully immerse you in the story and the world the most. You're not reading about it, you're not watching it, you're in it. And every action you yourself make in the game affects the story. Not to mention the breakthroughs we've had in virtual reality. I love seeing where studios and developers take the platform to give us new stories to soak ourselves into. So where exactly am I going with all this? Well, of the hundreds of games I've played and hundreds of stories I've finished, I still sometimes think about Far Cry 3. I think it just ticks a lot of boxes in what I like in storytelling and games in general, and does so in such a largely unique way. And sure, other games do this too, many in fact. but it's the way in which Far Cry 3 presents itself that makes it stand out. It's not my absolute favorite game of all time, but it is without a doubt high up on that list. Right away as you begin a new game, Far Cry 3 hits you with a quote from Alice in Wonderland. A fitting one, too. This ominously sets the stage for the story and gives you that uneasy feeling that something's not quite right. Like something bad is coming. Much like the tidal waves of the island you've just landed on, a storm is sure to arrive. Years back, when I was barely a teenager playing Far Cry 3 for the first time on release week, the story I understood, and loved, of course. It was the real, hidden meanings behind all of it that flew over my head. You see, I always thought the plot was about some young, rich douchebags getting their shit kicked in and you, being one of them, having to rescue them, meanwhile transforming from Jason Brody, California cocky rich kid, to heroic jungle survivalist badass. Then you leave and that's it. Cool. Simple. And this, truthfully, would be an almost entirely accurate description. Almost. It wasn't until nearly a decade later when I replayed it recently that I made a huge discovery. I was pretty wrong on a lot of key aspects about the game's story, in a lot of different ways. The thing about Far Cry 3 is it likes to poke the player with subtle clues, being sure not to overstate its point while also maintaining the tone. There's a lot you can learn about Jason by picking up on these clever hints, and I absolutely adore it. What I thought I understood about the plot of the game was kind of surface level. It's what was buried deep on the ocean floor I had to see. As a young teen, I easily missed all of these symbolic clues and deep meanings within the game's messaging. In part, I guess I blame my, at the time, poor attention span. But now, as a 21-year-old adult who can actually sit down and pay attention, now I think I've got the full picture. It was in my most recent playthrough where I realized exactly all the game is meant to encompass. As soon as we're thrust into the game, we awaken as Jason Brody, tied and held captive in a makeshift cage along with our older brother Grant. This is our introduction to the world we're in. Voss, the masterfully written duo antagonist, gives us the most brutal dressing down of our lives.
Look at me. Look me in the fucking eye. Eye! You fuck! Look me in the eye! You're my bitch. I rule this fucking kingdom. Shut the fuck up, or you die.
He's right, too, about what he says. We're not in America anymore. We're in his world. He rules us, and he will make us suffer in this harsh hellscape where everywhere we look, we see pirates maiming, torturing, killing people who beg and cry for their lives. This is where we are now. This island is our life for the time being. And it is not letting us go easily. Through the opening dialogue between Jason and Grant, it is made evident that Jason is not at all a candidate to be the one out here surviving in the harshness of the jungle. He's just an ordinary, college-going frat bro who loves to party, living life comfortably wild, young, and free, with his hot girlfriend and having all the luxuries California living can bring when you have the cash. Later on, though, in the game we get a chance to relive some of these moments, before we all dropped into this hell. Inside the cave where you all take shelter from the hostilities of the island is a certain red-colored tablet you can eat. Doing so will play out a few scenes where we get more clarity on what Jason and his friends were like before this trip. And this shows us, even more so, that Jason's not some hardened, trained military special forces operator. He's Jason. Well, at least for now he is. Now he may not be a cold-blooded action hero, but Grant? He might be, most definitely. Grant's character shows to us, the player, that he should be the one we assume the role of. We want to survive after all, right? He's US Army trained, and after effortlessly laying waste to several pirates around the camp without any hesitation, it's made all the more clear. Jason, on the other hand, is sick and nauseated at the thought and sight of taking another human being's life. He could never. But that changes fast when he must kill for once. He was forced to defend himself from a pirate's knife, and successfully, he manages to overpower him, stabbing him in the throat, killing him. He's scarred, horribly mortified, but he's got no time to dwell on it. He didn't want to kill him, or anyone else for that matter. He simply cannot handle this nightmare. And let's be honest, who really could in this kind of a situation? Now, Grant, however, he shows us he's more than capable of handling himself, both physically and mentally. He's trained for this. But Jason? Well, like I said, he's just an ordinary college kid barely past the age to drink. However, none of this really matters right now, because we're not even 1 minute outside the camp and Grant is shot dead. Immediately. The only one of the friend group that can reliably survive and kill in this kind of a situation is taken from us. Then afterwards, we're rescued by a tribe of warriors known as the Rakyat, a militant group who are bound to wipe the filth of the pirates off of their once beautiful tropical paradise. They take us in as one of their own, and we prove to them, scarred and confused as we are, that we have what it takes to prove ourselves a worthy warrior in their family.
Keep your head up, Jason. The tribe is very impressed with you.
Now Jason initially, he isn't too devoted to the Rakyat. Remember, all he wants right now is to get his friends and himself off of the island. Grant may be dead, but Jason never loses hope and the will to keep fighting for everyone else he cares about, no matter who gets in his way. It's all up to him now. Throughout the game, as we play and progress, we learn how the game works and how to survive the island's viciously unforgiving jungle. We learn to survive, but most importantly, we learn to kill. And the more we do it, the better we, the player, get at it. We understand the gameplay and how best to optimize our violence for maximum efficiency and style. It's fun. Really fun. However, it's not just us feeling this way. Jason is too. It starts to affect him, get to him. We start to realize that Jason is enjoying it. It makes sense, of course, everything you're doing, he's doing as well. About as much, if not more, than we ourselves are. No longer afraid, no longer hesitant to use as much force and brutality as need be. Slowly, we see him start to transform. He starts getting comfortable doing things that most regular people, including him hours back at the introduction of the game, would not only never even consider doing, but would likely suffer from relentless nightmares and trauma from it. What once was a challenge now comes to us as trivial. See a heavy pirate armed with a huge LMG? Well, now we can just stab them to death and be done with it. No more having to dump an entire magazine into the guy. We learn how to tackle problems the game presents us with more ease as we play. But it's not just us as players getting more skilled. After all, look who we're assuming the role of. We're Jason Brody, and the story brilliantly reflects this. We start to kill faster, gathering better weapons and equipment. Remember back when we had just started playing, Jason was the same guy who nearly had a total breakdown seeing the body of the first pirate he killed? Or just any of the death he'd witnessed in general? He hesitated to even buy a gun.
You want to save your brother, right?
I've never shot anyone before.
What do they say in America?
But now he's excited to get even more. It's evident that through our eventual progression in the game, that this isn't the same person anymore. Think back for a moment on what I said about Ubisoft. You may already know about Far Cry 6's less than stellar reception, but there's one thing I do really appreciate about it. It's in the Insanity DLC, where we get to see Voss's death from the hands of Jason in his perspective. And what we see is the real Jason, who we've truly become.
Peekaboo, motherfucker.
It's, well, very unnerving to see, and I actually applaud Ubisoft for this portrayal of Jason, and for allowing us to see what Voss did. What's more interesting within that DLC is when we start to play as Voss hunting Jason. We hear and we see a much different rendition of him than the one we play as. And I'm actually not talking about the same Jason just transformed into a killer, no. What we see instead is Voss's mental depiction of Jason, how he's always viewed him during the events of Far Cry 3, and it's incredibly fascinating. Not to mention it makes total sense. Voss doesn't know that much about us. The only real interactions we have with him are short, right about when he attempts to execute us.
A handgun is cool if you're pretending to be some sort of super spy or whatever, like James Bond. Do you know James Bond?
Yes, I know James Bond.
Sick, yeah, like him. But man, an AK? What's cooler than that?
It gets the job done.
Bro, anything gets the job done. If I don't look fucking sick doing it? What's the point?
I don't even really know what you're asking me.
So, of course this version of Jason is slightly off when it comes to the real one. One last note about it I found cool is what Voss's version of Jason that occupies his mind acts and sounds like. Voss only knew so much about Jason, so naturally, there's a reason why he acts this way. Once we finally rescue the first friend on our list, Lisa, we get an interesting look at Jason's change firsthand. She's horrified not just with the situation, but with us. She sees us massacring the pursuing pirates and hears our exclamations of joy and excitement in doing so.
Wow! Did you see that explosion?
What? Something exploded!
And that's not the only time she's frightened of us. Almost more than she is of the pirates.
Ah, we did it!
You think almost being killed or sold into slavery is fun?
Hey, Lisa, calm down.
This is a name.
Like us, the player, she too takes notice of our sudden transformation.
We have to talk.
We will, just not now. I need to find Riley. If anything happens to that
I
kid...
miss you. Okay, and you're carrying all these weapons and you have all these weird tattoos and... I'm not saying you shouldn't go rescue them. I'm just worried it's affecting you.
Lisa, don't worry. I'm taking control of my life for the first time.
I know,
That's
you're right.
a good thing.
We've been working really hard on that, and I have a studio job waiting for you. I helped Steve.
Oh, look, I don't want to talk about your exes right now. All right, this is my path. I've got to find it on my own.
Our friends are concerned for us, but what's more than that, they're scared of us. We're not their same friend, clearly. On a side note, I'd also like to mention how much I love the perk system, and how it does a great job of meshing with the story. You see, excluding the main story, when we fight for and help the Rocky out, whether it be liberating outposts, taking out the problematic animals or pirate commanders, and freeing up radio frequencies, we get more XP, which, in turn, grants a perks point to spend. And when we do, we get another addition to our tattoo. Now, the tattoo marks our membership with the tribe. Our connection to them grows, we gain their trust and their admiration. They start to idolize us, and we start fighting with them as well as for them. Jason starts getting more attached to their cause as it lines up with his own. Kill Voss and liberate the island, becoming warriors in the process. Far Cry 3 sure has a lot of secrets, and I'm not just talking about the Easter eggs or ancient ruins you can explore. No, instead, I mean this game has a great way of showing, rather than telling in a lot of ways. In one such example, after you rescue your little chilled out friend Oliver, and arrive at the cave where all your friends are camping out, maintaining a boat that will take them off the island eventually, you might be surprised to know that there's some hidden dialogue between Jason and his friends if you just so happen to linger for a little while longer. For instance, walking up to Daisy while she's working on her boat, you can press a button to interact with her. This starts a conversation scene and gives a tremendously fascinating look at how the events of the game have been affecting our main character, Jason.
Crazy question. You won first place at that swimming championship this year, right?
Yeah, 400 meter.
What did it feel like, winning? Not afterward on the podium, but in the water when you hit the pad.
Like I was really present. Like the whole world was me.
You know, I never thought I'd be able to kill someone. The first time it felt wrong. Which is good, right? But now, it feels like winning.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
This game sure stands out to me for these masterful uses of ludonarrative consistency, a term that signifies when gameplay and story intertwine and work with each other to make the story whole. I think it's very refreshing to see when a game acknowledges what the violence and actions we as the players are committing and to have them matter in the story. After all, this isn't a movie or a book, this is a video game. Us, personally, are in control and the game acknowledges this. We are the ones who make the progress through our interaction. And we know we must keep surviving as Jason in this world. There are several more examples as well of Jason slowly being dragged into his own world of insanity.
They killed him. Voss and Hoyt, those motherfuckers. Wasn't one brother enough? I'll get them. All of them. I swear.
Hey. Jason, what's wrong?
By now, it's very clear we're not playing the same character we started with. We're something else entirely now. Let's take a moment to backpedal for a bit. Back to the start of the game. Remember that Alice in Wonderland quote we were introduced to? Well, there is, of course, several more appropriately placed ones that we see that serves to give the player not just insight into how our characters and story are progressing, but they also serve as a way of subtle foreshadowing. These clips are brilliant in immersing us more into the mind of Jason Brody, and I really quite adore it. Accompanying the quotes are depictions of the Rorschach test, which, if you didn't know, is an old way of examining someone's mental well-being, and it serves as an incredibly symbolic icon in relation to what the game is trying to tell us. You may have seen some other videos that document the ideas of the symmetry between Voss and Jason, and it most assuredly is intentional. I believe what the game is saying about the cycle of violence is, no matter the intention, it will only lead to the eventual creation of monsters if it goes unchecked. Voss used to be Jason in his past, used to be like him, young, afraid, and ill-prepared for the harshness of the world. But as he grew like we did, which might I say is another fantastic element of the game, in having us, the player, play out ourselves Jason's growth and change, rather than to show us, which adds an abundance of immersion to the experience. Voss, like us, became what he had to, warrior. Insanity inevitably followed thereafter with the aid of the other antagonist of the story, Hoyt Volker. We waste no time in slaughtering him as well. During the later half of the game, Jason is so connected with the island in the Rakia, he throws away everything he once was. He decides to stay on the island forever and be a true Rakia warrior, like he believes he is truly meant to be.
Are you okay?
I'm fine.
Good. Because the boat's almost fixed. We get to go home.
I'm not going.
What?
What are you talking about?
I found my place. It's here, on this island.
Jason, are you serious?
His friends don't get him, anyways, he thinks. They don't seem to understand what it's like to really fight for something. By now, Jason is so prolific at killing, as the player is, that he'll go out of his way to massacre anyone and everyone who gets in his way. He finally found his believed to be true purpose in life and relishes in the excitement of fighting for his survival. He massacres armies and pirates alike, so much so that his reputation among them is that of fear. These armies want nothing more than to take him out, and yet not one of them can. Anyone who dares to get in Jason's way is butchered. No doubt about it. Now, Jason's coming closer to becoming the next Voss in that cycle, starting it over anew. This brings me now to the ending of the game. We're offered, as the name of the quest implies, a tough decision. We can either cut off all ties to our past life and live as the most powerful warrior the Rook Islands has ever seen. We'd finally be the true warrior we were meant to be, and all that we've fought for will have not been for nothing. Or maybe we could just forget about all of this. We can drag ourselves out of that dark misery that is violence and insanity. We can rejoin our friends who care about us and go back to a life where it may not have been as exciting, but at least we'll be a lot more proud of it. Jason has to overcome the biggest obstacle yet, becoming himself again. He must find the strength to overcome who he is now and be a true warrior in his return to society. Now, I personally like this option a lot more and think that this is the proper ending to the game. He snaps out of his insanity and realizes there's far more to life. He knows he's a better person, and the Rakia warrior he was destined to be isn't the real him. But it's all your choice. Either way, there's no real going back and totally erasing what Jason's done, what we've done. He's forever changed inside, and our actions will follow him until he dies.
I've killed so many people, I've lost count. I can't come back from this. I'm a monster. I can feel the anger inside me. But I am still somewhere inside me more than that.